Welcome to this Advanced Pedagogy elective on Cognitive Challenge, which has been designed in collaboration with the National Association for Able Children in Education, otherwise known as NACE. This elective is primarily designed for returning Scholars Program tutors who have previously designed and delivered their own course. If you are delivering a pre-designed course, you can still take some important strategies from this elective to plan for your delivery of tutorial activities. My name is Lauren Model, and I'm the Teaching and Learning Manager for the Scholars Program, and I'm pleased to introduce you to this Advanced Pedagogy elective. In this session, you'll explore pedagogy and strategies to incorporate cognitive challenge into your Scholars Program course. We know that in your previous placements, you have stretched and challenged your pupils, and the research conducted by NACE will further support you in integrating and developing those challenges in your Scholars Program course. The pedagogical strategies discussed here may also be useful for incorporating challenge into any undergraduate teaching that you undertake. I'll now turn things over to Dr. Anne McCarthy, NACE's Research and Development Director, to get us started.
Hello, my name is Dr. Anne McCarthy. The discussion of cognitive challenge relates to a recent report I co-authored for the National Association for Able Children in Education. The term cognitive challenge has been used by NACE to help practitioners to understand and discuss the types of challenge which change the ways pupils think. The aim when creating cognitively challenging learning experiences is not only to provide work which is more challenging in the instant, but to create a consistently enriched and challenging model which enables pupils to think more deeply about what they learn and how they learn. A small number of challenging tasks will extend learning in the lesson, but effective cognitive challenge will increase the capacity for learning, problem solving, and future autonomy. NACE's research into cognitive challenge reflects the achievements evident in NACE schools and the contribution made to the education of more able students by classroom practitioners and school leaders. The core principles of NACE include an understanding that provision for more able learners is not about labelling, but about creating a curriculum and learning opportunities which will allow all children to flourish. We recognise the wide range of domains in which high ability can be evident, and we aspire to develop ability through challenge, opportunity, and self-belief. Teachers must have high expectations and aspirations for their pupils. They must provide a challenging and enriching education, and to do this, their professional development is paramount. In this session, I will present some principles which describe cognitive challenge and highlight specific practices which have enabled schools to provide cognitively challenging learning environments. Throughout the session, you are encouraged to think how these principles and practices for cognitive challenge can be incorporated into your Scholars Program course, so you can continue to stretch and challenge your pupils. The ultimate aim of the teacher is to activate learning and create autonomous learners. This is achieved through the 3 steps highlighted here, which will help you to understand cognitive challenge, plan teaching and learning underpinned by a desire to create cognitively challenging learning, and develop the learning environment, the nature of learning, and the learner's understanding of their own learning. The students you work with have been identified as more able by their teachers. Some of them have been identified as more able based on formal measures, such as grades or other assessments. Others will have been selected because their teacher knows they have academic and personal capabilities to rise to the academic challenge of the Scholars Program. When planning to teach more able young people, it's important to recognise and develop learning dispositions like those outlined on the slide. Planned teaching and learning should help students to refine their areas of strength. Teaching, assessment and feedback strategies should refer to these strengths and allow students to utilise them. Students are more likely to own their learning if they know how learning dispositions impact on learning and if metacognition is developed alongside other aspects of learning. What do you understand by challenge? Just stop for a moment and reflect on this. Take 60 seconds to consider anything that might come into your mind and then move on. When we begin to examine the principles of cognitive challenge, we need to make it clear how this is distinct and different from other uses of the term challenge. The word challenge often refers to more work, harder problems, longer answers, bigger numbers. These will all improve the student's repertoire, technical skills and knowledge, but they do not necessarily deepen understanding or enable students to think more flexibly or approach new, different or complex situations. Cognitive challenge, by contrast, will change the way students think and increase their capacity for flexible thought and imagination. NACE's definition of cognitive challenge goes beyond additional challenge activities. Cognitive challenge comes from intentional planned processes which lead to abstraction and complexity of thought. A cognitively challenging curriculum will increase students' understanding, enable them to deconstruct or reconstruct knowledge and make links with existing knowledge. Cognitively challenging pedagogy will optimise engagement, learning and achievement. Cognitively challenging learning opportunities lead to extended and strategic thinking, stimulating analytic and evaluative processes. Effective cognitive challenge is distinctive, embedded and consistent throughout individual sessions and the broader learning experience. Before examining cognitive challenge as an abstract construct, it is important that you reflect upon your current understanding of challenge. Consider how and where you create challenging learning experiences for the students you work with. How do these challenges in your course expand, extend and enrich current learning experience and deepen students' knowledge and understanding? Do planned challenges utilise and extend the learning dispositions of more able students? Does the challenge they experience in one session influence long-term learning? Do challenges have a cumulative benefit? Does challenge influence the way in which the students think? Do students understand how the challenge impacts on their metacognitive skills? Pause the video here for about 5 minutes to reflect upon these questions in the context of your course. Using the definition of cognitive challenge and the likely learning dispositions of the more able students, we can begin to describe cognitive challenge in a manner that is transferable to the classroom environment. When planning your teaching, it's useful to consider where cognitive challenge is evident in the planning, delivery and subsequent learning. You can then use strategies of backward planning to ensure your tutorial activities and outcomes create the desired cognitive challenge. The research identifies 5 areas which teachers include when creating cognitively challenging learning environments. The first is a deep and varied learning environment which allows pupils to thrive and is not limited by routines or systematic learning. By planning for different types of learning experience and by ensuring their learning is not superficial, students can think more deeply and act more imaginatively. In your course, this may mean including a range of activities that encourage pupils to apply their knowledge to more open-ended questions or prompts, or activities that foster creative thinking. Having established the learning environment, we want pupils to have compelling context for learning. When pupils are drawn into the learning because it's interesting, exciting, intriguing and compelling, they develop a passion for learning. They want to know more about the subject and seek a deeper understanding. They will discuss their learning with others and they will challenge existing knowledge. You will already have considered your course how you can spark pupils' interest in your topic. But it's also worth considering how you can spark their interest in the complexities of the topic and the challenges of working through those complexities. Complex and absorbing problems with multiple solution pathways serve to engage students, but it also provides them with skills to become problem solvers. When the problem has more than one solution, or if pupils are allowed to investigate alternative routes to finding a solution, they are more likely to take risks and are more resilient when the chosen route to the solution doesn't give the expected outcomes. Through well-chosen tasks, students can learn the process of problem solving in class at the same time as learning new facts, and they can make better use of the facts in a wide variety of contexts. If students move forward from solving problems to becoming problem solvers, they will learn faster and better, making greater use of their acquired knowledge. For your course, think about how you can incorporate a wide range of activities for pupils to apply their knowledge in a range of ways. Cognitive challenge cannot exist in isolation. There is a need to organise knowledge and create schemata. Schemata are simply the links made in learning, which the pupil uses to draw more information into effective working memory. It's important to understand where each student is on the learning journey and make a plan which takes them further along that journey. Students need to learn how to make the links, develop a deeper understanding, and then make cognitive leaps using working knowledge. You might use your baseline assignment or some informal checks for understanding where the student is on their learning journey. It is important to plan work with the learner at the heart of the plan. If teaching is then planned to increase knowledge and improve the usefulness of the knowledge by improving recall and connections between ideas, this will enhance performance. It will increase understanding and enjoyment of learning. Enhanced cognitive processes are supported through tasks which encourage flexible thinking, which reframe knowledge to solve complex problems, which improve the ways information is processed, and which develop sophisticated language associated with that knowledge and understanding. With these skills in place, pupils will become increasingly independent and engaged in cognitively challenging learning experiences. This ability to independently navigate cognitive challenge will further prepare pupils for success at a highly selective university if they wish to pursue a place in the future. Take 5 minutes to reflect on the information in the 5 rings diagram. Choose one of your tutorials and consider if there are any ways in which the materials, teaching strategies or other elements could be improved or refined to further develop cognitively challenging learning. Then consider the questions in the context of your whole course. To help us to understand the links between theory and practice, we've focused on 3 pillars of cognitively challenging practice which need to be considered when teaching more able students. These 3 areas of practice have the potential to have the greatest impact on cognitively challenging teaching and learning. The quality of the curriculum, in both organisation and design, can have a profound impact on the quality of learning, pace of learning and aspirations of young people. Cognitive challenge is exhibited through the planned and intentional design and management of teaching, learning and assessment. We need to be aware of the impact of linguistic development and cognitive discourse and explicitly plan for distinctive, embedded and consistent practice. When planning a programme of study, your curriculum, which in this case is your Scholars Programme course, you make decisions about the complexity of the content, the way in which it's organised and the plans you have to deliver this. If you plan this from the perspective of the learner, you'll be thinking of ways to deepen and advance their thinking. You'll be considering the richness of knowledge and language which can be shared. You will strive to enrich their experience and you will develop their understanding of themselves as learners so they will be able to apply their new knowledge and skills independently in other environments. You will have already started to think about these things through your initial training that you received as a PhD tutor. The design and management of learning will not only enable you to impart knowledge, but will lead to cognitively challenging design for instruction and move pupils towards independence. The importance of learner independence is that it improves motivation, confidence and academic learning. Pupils who understand their own learning, their strengths and limitations can manage their learning better. The teaching model should lead to gradual transfer of responsibility from teacher to student. The student will have opportunities to watch the teacher as a role model for learning behaviours and learn from the teacher how to self-monitor through clear goals and feedback. When designing the learning, consider the experiences and thought processes pupils will use to acquire knowledge and understanding. How will pupils improve their ability to plan, monitor and assess their understanding and performance? How will they become more critical of the ways in which they learn and think? How will the learning experience impact on behaviours, attitudes and skills that pupils need to be effective learners? Pupils need to be able to organise and manipulate knowledge to solve problems, analyse situations and respond to circumstances. They need to identify and apply learning attributes discussed previously to different contexts so that they achieve the best outcomes. They need to manage their emotions and feelings. They need to take risks to make mistakes and remain confident and ambitious learners. Both the curriculum plan and the management of learning are dependent on the quality of language and discourse in the classroom. Pupils need opportunities to exchange ideas, discuss and question in order to extend learning and challenge ideas. More able pupils have the capacity to take learning beyond the planned activity. By allowing talk, questioning and this exchange of ideas, learning will move forward more rapidly. The learning environment must be language rich, both in the correct use of technical vocabulary, but also in the use of high-frequency spoken and written vocabulary. The classroom is a place to widen pupils' understanding of the use of English through its daily practice and modelled by the teacher. If pupils are shown how to discourse effectively, when discussing ideas with the teacher or developing ideas with their peers, they develop the capacity to formulate ideas independently with others and with the teacher. The nature of discourse, the type of questions, and the opportunities given to pupils to practice skills must be part of planned teaching. If the teacher models high-order questioning techniques, pupils in turn can ask questions which expose new ways of thinking. When the teacher engages in a learning dialogue, demonstrating the nature of dialogue and the precision of language required to develop meaningful discourse, then pupils will be able to use dialogic discourse as a learning tool. You may already be using varied questions to foster this sort of challenge and independence, but it will be important to ensure a range of strategies are in place to foster independent inquiry throughout your course. Take 2 minutes to think about areas of your own teaching where you may need to reconsider the nature and type of cognitive challenge on offer. Many educational models consist of hierarchies in developing learning. Here, Webb demonstrates the learning model from basic recall to extended thinking. Using this model, it's possible to see the ways in which aspects of teaching change as sophistication increases. At the start, closed questions, memorised facts, and routines are introduced. These are then replaced with some opportunities to practice skills or concepts in similar and safe environments, which might include practice questions or tasks similar to those modelled by the teacher. As the task becomes more open-ended or an opinion is needed, the use of higher-level language, open questions, experiments or variation of tasks will encourage greater use of schema and development of strategy. To some extent, this still reflects the models and language provided by the teacher. At the point the student is given freedom to go beyond the fixed success criteria or existing models or ideas to investigate, research and discuss at greater depth, they are moving towards cognitive challenge, a sophistication in learning and greater independence. Vygotsky's zone of proximal development is another learning hierarchy. It shows what students can do with guidance. If students are going to develop as independent learners, they need to move from their comfort zone. This is the zone of achieved development. Learning includes some degree of struggle. High challenge, which requires some thinking, will promote effective learning. However, if the challenge becomes too great, pupils experience panic and cognitive overload. It's important for the teacher to make accurate judgments about the organisation of content and the learning journey. The teacher needs to identify what background information is needed to enable pupils to access the learning, take on challenge, but not experience cognitive overload. Do not assume that all students will have the same knowledge and experience. Even those coming from the same class and within the same school are unlikely to possess an identical knowledge base and repertoire, as learning comes from both within school and from all other experiences. It may be you're using the Rosenshine instructional model to manage learning. This begins with a review of prior learning. New material is then presented and developed using questioning, modelling and practice. Teacher interaction and scaffolding enable students to move forward to independent learning. When using this or other instructional models, it's important to remember that the audience is more able, and movements between learning phases are driven by what pupils know and can do and the rate at which they can take ownership of their learning. When presenting and formally teaching, you need to provide enough information and scaffolding to allow access to learning, but should guard against providing pupils with redundant information which can lead to distraction rather than learning progression. Encourage the students to discuss what they know and question or challenge where appropriate. Prepare them with skills to act independently, to persevere, to maintain focus and to concentrate. As they become increasingly proficient and more able, encourage pupils to exert their natural criticality when managing their learning. Even if these pedagogical theories are newer to you, you are likely to have already incorporated some strategies to gradually increase challenge to allow pupils to engage with ideas in your course. However, we encourage you to consider how you can continue to adapt your delivery using some of these specific pedagogical models. At this point, pause to consider the precision which you have included in your planning. How could you provide pupils with further opportunities to experience confusion and to struggle in order to learn more deeply and meaningfully? How have you structured the learning so that they know how they might learn and how to learn without experiencing overload or panic? How does your planning enable them to become independent? Again, you will likely have already incorporated some of this into your course, but pause the video here and consider how you can ensure this is intentionally and explicitly included in your plans for activities and tutorials. With the curriculum planned and the learning organised, we now think about the importance of language and its significance in developing cognitively challenging learning environments. As discussed previously, challenge should involve planned opportunities to move a learner to a higher level of achievement. To achieve this, you need discourse and questioning which encourage deeper and broader learning. Thinking back to your initial training on questioning and Bloom's taxonomy, you will know language should reflect and promote higher order and critical thinking processes. Demanding concepts or content, abstract ideas, patterns, connections, and synthesis can all be approached through a language-rich learning environment. The teacher might introduce challenging ideas, texts, and resources. To enable pupils to use language within a cognitively challenging learning environment, the teacher must first model and then expect precise, technical, and disciplinary language. The types of questions used by both teacher and students will impact on the way in which pupils learn. Questions can be used to clarify and assess understanding, challenge assumptions, obtain evidence for argument, uncover other students' knowledge, opinions and perspectives, predict implications and consequences, or even question the question itself. Once pupils have seen big questions, complex questions, and questioning used for different purposes, they themselves can use questioning techniques. This then moves teaching and learning from a traditional model in which teachers ask questions to measure knowledge and understanding, to more cognitively challenging learning. By asking questions which create cognitive confusion or encourage curiosity, pupils' learning can be redirected along different learning pathways as they create different iterations in their own thinking. You can create constructive cognitive confusion, for example, by introducing an opposing valid viewpoint and asking pupils to use their knowledge to gain a deeper understanding of a big question. When moving towards the student as an independent or autonomous learner, the question can move the learner beyond the limitations of the planned curriculum to develop new thinking and thought processes. The independent learner will not only ask questions about the ideas presented, but also question their own learning. The questions they pose will develop metacognition, analyse the worth of learning and its place within their repertoire, and enable them to understand context. Within the context, they will be able to establish what they already know, what they need to know to resolve a problem, and what potentially they might still be able to discover which will enrich their learning. They will generate new questions which they might ask themselves, used to collaborate with their peers and teachers, or possibly challenge conventional thinking. Pupils may need some support to do this initially, but once they've established what they already know, what they want to know from their learning, and what their learning is possible, they can then use questioning to set a route through learning. As independent learners, they can accelerate the breadth and depth of learning. So from this, we can see a key feature of planning is the plan for talk. In general, cognitive discourse, linguistic development, increased vocabulary, and questions. A good question is often central to high-quality learning, providing it is well planned, and pupils have the skill to use this as a driver for their own questions and deeper learning. A classroom in which high-level talk, communication, discourse, questioning, and debate is evident is also a classroom in which independent cognitively challenging learning can develop. It must be planned, modelled by the teacher, developed by the pupils, and executed consistently. Using the principles of cognitive challenge, the development of curriculum, the organisation and management of teaching in the classroom, and the development of rich and extended talk and cognitive discourse, your teaching will create an environment in which pupils can develop learning attributes and become increasingly independent in their learning. To move learning from the responsibility and ownership of the teacher to that of the learner, there needs to be a planned journey to achieve this. We've already seen how hierarchies in learning, with the Webb model, the Vygotsky zone of proximal development, and the Rosenshine principles of instruction. This can also be seen through models which explicitly move learning from teacher to pupil. Independent learning doesn't merely involve students working alone. Teachers have a key part to play in enabling and supporting independent learning. By modelling learning skills and techniques, providing an expert resource, organising and managing the learning environment, and developing pupils' language, discourse and questioning skills, teachers can support independence. Fisher-Frey exemplified a model in which teaching is initially owned by the teacher and then teaching and learning is shared. The responsibility for learning is then passed to the pupils as they acquire the learning attributes modelled by the teacher and taught alongside the subject content. To what extent does your course shift responsibility for the learning process? If you have a fixed model for teaching and learning where you retain control, then pupils do not have enough opportunity to develop as learners. How does your course currently include plans which enable the student to lead learning? For example, supporting pupils to play active roles in group discussions. Are there further ways you can design this into your tutorials? When planning, you need to enable pupils to acquire an understanding of their learning. It's important to develop pupils' self-regulation skills, which include planning, self-monitoring, controlling the pace and direction of the work, and evaluation. You might do this, for example, by making the purpose and outcomes of pupils' learning visible, emphasising the skills they've developed alongside the knowledge they've gained. You can also make explicit connections between the academic skills they are developing and the role those play in university learning environments. In this way, pupils can clearly understand how their work with you links to their development as a learner. In addition to the research on cognitive challenge, NACE provides a wide variety of opportunities for individuals and organisations to learn more about the education of more able pupils. The NACE website provides lots of information. If you have any questions, why not connect with NACE?
Thank you so much, Anne, and to NACE for sharing their existing research. We hope this session will help you consider how you may want to continue to adapt and develop your Scholars Program course. Before you conclude this elective, please consider the following prompts on the slide. Try to write down 2 to 3 specific actions you will take to adapt your Scholars Program course, handbook, or the delivery of tutorials before your next placement. You should also write down one thing that you'll take away from this elective into future undergraduate teaching. You can also visit NACE's website to learn more about their work supporting more able learners. Go ahead and pause the video now to do this. Thank you for attending this advanced pedagogy session, and we look forward to working with you again soon.